I've been blogging for 10 years. And along the way, I've learned quite a bit about blogging and marketing and interaction and even social media. I've had some experience in marketing, working with the companies that employed me, working with clients, working for myself. But I didn't consciously think about brands and branding until the last few years. Branding was kind of always in the background, but I didn't think about how integrated it was into the brand, and into the marketing, and into the blog. But as I got better at it and I started to understand it, I picked up a few things that I want to share with you tonight. So we're going to talk about the art of the brand, what your blog needs and deserves. As Meredith said, my name is Wade Kwon. I'm with the All Connect conference. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. My Twitter name is @WadeOnTweets. So anytime you want to tweet out or share any part of the presentation, feel free to. You can stream it on Meerkat. You can put it on Instagram. You can put it on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you like. All the sheets have a link to the slides. So they're up and posted, I think. You can download them. You can share them with your friends. You can make notes. But you can feel free to take as many or as few notes as you want to, because you have access to the slides. And if you have questions, just raise your hand. Don't wait for the end. I'll be happy to take questions at any point about what we're talking about. We're going to hit 3 things about brands and blogs tonight. First is setting a goal. I always start with clients on goal setting. I want you to have a good destination in mind with your blog and your brand and your marketing efforts. So we'll talk about some things to shape your goals. What does your blog stand for? What are your brand values? It's important to define those in as narrow a term as possible, and I'll walk you through how to do that and the importance of why you really need to know those values for your brand. Consistency. This is the mantra I've been preaching for the last few years. Even if your brand is not perfect, even if you think your brand could be improved, if you are consistent about your marketing and your blogging, you will stand out. You will rise above your competitors, and you will succeed in achieving your goals faster if you are consistent about execution. Again, another misadventure in branding and blogging led me to that conclusion. If your blog is something you do as a business, you need to set a goal. If you're doing blogging for fun, that's perfectly fine. I've been blogging for fun for 10 years. I don't get paid for my Birmingham blog. I write on it every day, and I'll keep writing on it for as long as possible. But I do it because it's enjoyable. I do it because I learn something. I do it because it's a creative outlet for me. But my other blogs, my other sites, they have goals attached to them, related to business, related to achievement, related to branding and marketing. And so you need to think about, what do I want to get out of my site? What do I want to accomplish? What dream am I trying to fulfill by having this blog, by having whatever business attached to it? A few years ago, I wanted to learn as much as I could about getting in shape. I wanted to learn more about working out and eating better, and what could I do to take better care of myself. So I read up on it in this book called The 4-Hour Body, but I was skeptical. Like, I didn't think any of it was going to work, and so I wanted to try it out. So I just created a quick blog called Project Bulk, because as I started out on all of this, I wanted some accountability, some public accountability. A lot of my friends have done diets and workout routines, and they've fallen off track because they get bored, or it's too hard, or they're not seeing any results, or it's just up and down, up and down, and up and down. And I was afraid, if it gets too difficult, I'll just quit. So if I blog about it, if I write posts and keep it out there, then if I slack off, someone will ask me about it, someone will point it out to me, and I'll have incentive to keep going. I'll let you in on a secret. I've been skinny my entire life. and it's a little bit of a struggle because no matter what I did, no matter what I tried, no matter what exercise routine I did, no matter what I ate, bad or good, large amounts or small amounts, I never changed. And it's not a big struggle, but if you ever wish that you had a different body shape and you want to change something about yourself, and no matter what you tried, you were completely lost and nothing changed, then perhaps you can understand the frustration that I was feeling. So I went out and bought some weights and cleared out my pantry and started watching videos on how to do lifting properly so I wouldn't hurt myself, and so I get maximum benefit out of it. And so I launched this in September of 2012, and first month just wrote a post a day because I had a lot to kind of get moving on. But then the next month, just a couple of times a week, and then month 3 onward, just one post a week. Now, if you go to the site, then and now, you'd see updates of what I'd eaten that day and how many calories and how many grams of protein and how much I'd worked out, how many reps and how long I'd worked out, and so on. So it's all there, it's all documented. So even though I was only blogging once a week by month 3, just sharing here's where I am, and here's a photo of me, and this is what I learned this week. You could still go to the site any time and see the very latest updates from me. But I didn't, as you can see from the screenshot, I didn't create some special logo. I didn't invest any money in the site. I didn't create a Facebook page for it. I didn't create a Twitter account for it. It was just simply for me to have some place to record everything I did. And if you wanted to see it and if you wanted to learn from it, great, you could get to it. If I shared posts from the site, I shared them with the same frequency and urgency that I share all the other blog posts I write on a regular basis, which is not very much. But I didn't have a goal in mind in terms of branding and this blog. I wasn't trying to turn this into some bio movie or some book deal or something beyond just, here's a diet and exercise routine that I started recently. And that was a problem, because even though I had not set a goal for branding, I accidentally screwed up my brand by doing this. So I started this in September of 2012, jump ahead about 6 months to the spring of 2013. So I'm out and about, and I am going to meetings and networking with people, and going to coffee shops and conferences and so on. And I run into people that I know, and typically we just make small talk. I ask them about their kids and their job and church and so on. They ask me the same types of questions. Except that in that spring, they wouldn't come up to me and say, "Hey Wade, how you doing?" Or "How's Y'all Connect coming together?" They came up to me and said, "Hey Wade, how's Project Bulk going?" Or "Have you gained a lot of weight?" Or "How's your workout going?" Or are you suffering any drawbacks yet? The first and only thing they wanted to talk about was not the weather or the conference or something else. It was this stupid diet and exercise routine. And I'd written 50 posts by that point. I knew they hadn't read all 50 posts. They might have read 1 or 2, and they might skim through them, or they might have seen me tweet about it at some point. But like I said, I didn't do anything special for this stuff. And I wasn't putting it out there because, like I said, I was late to the party. A lot of people I knew, they had already been experimenting with diet and exercise. Perhaps some of your friends have done this thing called CrossFit, where you go to the gym and then afterwards you go and tell everyone about going to the gym. Or Or, perhaps some of your friends have gone on the paleo diet, and one of the components of the paleo diet is to excruciatingly detail to you what they eat and do not eat on the paleo diet. I didn't necessarily want to fall into that category, so I kept it pretty low-key. And yet, I had actually accidentally changed at least part of my personal brand. That's fine because it was a positive change. It was just something, it was a conversation starter, and it wasn't like I took up smoking a pack a day. I was trying to get healthier. So it was at least a positive change to my personal brand. But if you are not deliberate about the goal for your branding and your blog, you can, and you continue to blog consistently, you can accidentally change perceptions of you, your brand, your company, your blog, and stray from the path that you need for your business. When setting goals, you've got to have some numbers behind it. You have to be able to measure your goals. If you told me that the goal for your blog for the next year is to increase brand awareness, I'm going to say good for you, but that doesn't tell me anything. Now, if you told me that the goal for your blog by the end of this year is to add 50 readers and subscribers, that has a deadline, that has a number behind it, it can be measured, and you'll know by December 31st if you hit that goal or if you went over that goal or you went under it. If you tell me that your goal by the end of the year is to add $1,000 of advertising and sponsorship, that tells me that you have a measurable goal in mind. You know that by the end of the year, if you've gotten $1,001, you've succeeded in your goal. So put some numbers behind the goal or goals that you have for your brand and your blog. Where does brand fit into that? Well, brand and blog go hand in hand in this discussion. So if you're trying to add readers and subscribers, does your brand attract readers or does it push them away? What is it about your brand that people come back for? Is it continuous across other platforms? So if you're trying to get email newsletter subscribers to build your readership, does that brand continue on in the emails that you send out once a week or once a month or however often you send it out? Is there brand continuity? When you are trying to get that $1,000 of advertising and sponsorship, does your brand attract companies that want to sponsor your site? Does your brand have the right resonance because it matches with the target audience of that advertiser? Do they see a positive aspect about your blog's brand? These are the things that you have to consider as you're putting together your goals. Your goal is way off in the distance, so you might need some interim deadlines and some steps to get to it, or some mini goals. If you are trying to get those 50 subscribers, you may need to figure out, well, to get to that point, I need an email newsletter, so I need to go set one up with MailChimp or Constant Contact or another provider. And if I'm going to do that, then I need to add a form to my site. And either I know how to do that, or I've got to find someone else who can install that on my site. And then I've got to figure out, okay, so by the end of this month, I'm going to figure out which mailing list I'm going to use. By the end of next month, I'm going to get it installed on my site. By the end of the third month, I'm going to figure out some incentive to get people to sign up for that newsletter or subscribe to the blog. Like it might be a giveaway, a free ebook or a PDF or something that incentivizes people to give over their email address. But you can see that each of those steps leads you towards gaining that 50 readers or subscribers by the end of the year. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. If you're trying to do the goal of add $1,000 in new revenue by the end of the year, you might need to create a media kit. So there's step one. But before step one, you need to go look at other media kits and figure out what elements go in them and what rates you should probably charge based on the size of your audience and the demographics and so on. And then another step might be, okay, how do I approach potential advertisers? Or how do I get them to approach me so that it's easy for them to do business with me? And your brand, again, goes hand in hand with each of these little steps to get you to the finish line. Does your brand attract the right readership? Does it make sense across all the platforms? Is it helping you or hurting you? Or how can you adjust it as you go along so that it's more consistent or at a level that you feel is acceptable so that other people, when they see it, they have a positive response. Companies and potential sponsors see it, they have a positive response, and so on. So they need to be measurable goals. They need to be goals that you can break down into individual steps. You might recognize it by the formal name, business plan. If you have a business that is your blog, or your blog is a part of it, you may need to consider putting together a plan. Now that plan can be 1 page long, or it can be 50 pages long, or it can be 150 pages long. You can read books on it, there are some upstairs. You can go to courses on it locally. You can ask your mentors or your friends who have done them before for help. You might be the only person ever to lay eyes on it. The business plan does not necessarily have to be for investors or bankers or loan officers. It may be strictly for your use so that you have a good start and you stay on track. Because when you have lots of decisions to make, and it's 7 months from now, it's hard to navigate without some kind of roadmap that you've designed yourself. That plan is not written in stone. It may evolve. You may adapt it to changing circumstances. But it's going to have the framework you need for your blog and your brand. What is your business model? Who is your audience? How will you make money or achieve the things that you want to achieve down the road? What is the marketing strategy that you're going to use to start reaching these people? You better believe that, behind Y'all Connect and some of the other things I work on, I've got these business goals for the end of this year and the end of 2 years from now and 3 years from now, and the tactics change year by year. And of course, if things work or don't work, I've got to adjust on the fly. But it's all tied into what is the Y'all Connect brand? What are we doing on the blog this week? What are we doing in our email newsletter? What are we doing in our paid advertising and so on? It's planned out to a certain degree, so I don't have to sit there and try and figure it out 2 months from now or 3 months from now or in the heat of the moment. You have lots of resources to figure out how you're going to put that plan together.
Okay, so you just said something that sparked a question.
Yeah.
So you said when you're thinking about Y'all Connect, you decide obviously your goals, and you think about, you said the term we. And one thing that I'm kind of struggling with right now is, how do you know when it's time to expand and get other people to help you? And is there a way in your business plan to figure out, I guess, what the budget should be for that, at what point it's time to add someone on? Or maybe that's a personal question I should ask you later, but.
So if I understand your question, so Heather's asking, if you are a one-person business, but you are planning to expand beyond just yourself as part of your business, when is the right time to pull that trigger? Is that it? So Y'all Connect is just me. My consulting business is just me. Now I have contract labor during the year, speakers, volunteer coordinator, and then vendors who shoot the conference and provide AV equipment and so on. So it is beyond me in the sense that I rely on a lot of folks. I don't sit there and go and set up the stage and the projector and the microphones by myself. But if at some point I want to expand it to a second person, when do I know when it's the right call? That's a good question because I don't know. And for me, the way Y'all Connect is structured, it can expand to double the audience this year or next year or the year after that, and it can still be run by one person. And the reason is because I have 364 days to put it together, and I have no other major time constraints to do that. So it's flexible. If all of a sudden I have to spend more time on the conference, that's no big deal to me. I'm not trying to juggle family and a 9-to-5 job and something else. So it's harder for me to answer the question simply because I'm not on a path right now where I think I'm going to have to expand. The things you have to consider, though, are, is it going to be full-time, part-time labor? Is it going to be contract labor? These are questions, by the way, you have to ask both your accountant and your attorney. And that's because once you have contract labor or employees, your responsibilities multiply in terms of benefits, taxes, payroll, human resources, and so on. So that's actually a pretty complicated question, because the moment you add a single person, you have to consider all of those issues. So I would definitely talk with an attorney and an accountant. And if you have a mentor or if you have someone you trust who actually does employ people, it might be worth talking to that person as well. I've been deliberate about making sure to use specifically contract labor because it's a flexible model. It's easy for me to follow all the rules, and it allows other people flexibility too. You have to work a day a year or 1.5 days a year.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. Think about where your blog and your business are going. If it's headed towards something where it's going to be more than just a hobby, more than just for fun, and you can see it expanding or growing or becoming more complex over the next couple of years, I would definitely look into putting together a plan. Yeah, let me ask you something. So, how many of you know something about brands and blogging? Raise your hand. How many, well, let me ask it this way. So how many of you think you know nothing about brands when it comes to blogging? I see a couple of hands. I think you're wrong. And I'm going to prove that because I'm standing in front of a room full of people who are really good at blogging and have good brand setup. Because I've gone and looked at all of your blogs. I mean, all of them in the last 48 hours. And people who know about building a community and interaction. So I've got examples of different blogs and the branding that you've done. Shauna, are you here? So, Shauna or Shanna? Shanna. So these are all positive examples. I'm not singling someone else for Shanna. And by the way, I put these examples up here because I want you to see your peers and be inspired and come up with creative ideas that you can apply to your own site. Because I learned a lot looking at all of your sites. So Shanna does Blissfully Southern. And this is the front page of her site. It's a screenshot. But you see at the top, nice typography for the logo, black type on white, Blissfully Southern in that cursive font. She also has her photos with watermarks with the name of the site on them. And if you look at the Facebook and Twitter pages, you see it. I mean, anywhere you're sitting in the room, you can see it. I'd make one tiny suggestion, and it's just simply on your header images for Twitter and Facebook, I would just make Blissfully Southern either centered or on the right, so your avatar's not covering it up. But, I mean, we can tell. We can see it. And that approach shows that you put some thought into, you want that experience to carry over from, so if someone finds you on Twitter, or they find you on Facebook, or they find you on your blog, they get that similar experience. Lisa, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So Lisa does From the North to the South, a basic WordPress site, right?
Yeah, I actually have my own self-hosted site, but I haven't transferred everything over yet.
So I'm looking at like before you're getting ready to make a big switch, right?
Yes.
Same URL though.
Yes, it'll actually be fromthenorthtothesouth.com.
Great. So this is a basic WordPress site, and I don't say that negatively because I've used basic WordPress for all of my sites for 10 years. I'm a big fan of basic WordPress because they're easy to set up. You can style them however you want to. I don't put a lot of effort necessarily on the front end of some of my sites because they look good even if you don't do that much to them. Header image, just basic type up there from the north to the south. It's not a graphic, it's actual type. But you look at the Facebook page. So she has a Facebook page from the north to the south for the blog. Again, just a header image, no logo or anything in the header image. But what tickled me is that the avatar, which you can't see right here, so I'll blow it up for you, her avatar is branded properly. And it's branded because It's a screenshot of the blog. I've never seen a blog use a screenshot for an avatar in social media. It's extremely clever. I like it. But when I first saw that, I was just tickled because I just never had seen anything like it before. And I just thought that was an innovative solution besides just doing a logo or doing an avatar or doing this. I mean, I thought that was great. Whitney? So Whitney does a blog, Wit and Love. Color's not great on the screen, but if you pull up her site, the logo at the top, the ampersand, you can see it's in a heavier font. It's in like a yellow, a mustard yellow, and the tagline, a lifestyle blog, it's also in that yellow. It looks really good. It pops when you see it. You look at the Twitter page, again, the logo across the header image. Even on the Instagram page, you see the ampersand pulled out as the avatar, and you see it on the Twitter page. I mean, it just really jumps out at you, that yellow ampersand. I just really like the type treatment. I think it's elegant, but I also like how she's integrated across these different channels, and she didn't feel like she had to put the whole logo in there. That one symbol takes care of all of that. So you define your goals, and you know where you want to head to with your blog and your brand. But you need to know what the values are that your brand stands for. And it's not too difficult to narrow it down. I have been dating online for a few years, and I'm not going to make you raise your hand if you ever had a date online. But when you first sign up, you fill out a questionnaire. It's a really basic profile. It's like name, height, occupation, education, religion, likes, dislikes, and so on. I mean, a 5-year-old can fill it out. It's just that simple. And so I filled mine out really quickly and put it out there. And I was looking at other profiles. And all the profiles I were looking at were women's profiles. I was interested in dating women, and so those are the ones they showed me. It might have been helpful to look at men's profiles because I just didn't know what they were doing. Like, I just looked at a bunch of your sites, and I got some ideas about branding and design and so on. But like, I had no idea what the other zillion guys out there were putting on their profiles. But I did look through a lot of women's profiles, and one trend that I noticed is I'd look through a batch of 20 or 30, and I wouldn't remember a single thing about any of the people I just looked at. They all just kind of ran together after a while. They were generic, or they just weren't, there was just nothing that stood out about each person. And that was a shame. I mean, I'm sure I could have reread them 2 or 3 times and still come away with that weird amnesia about it. But then I started to wonder, well, I wonder if my profile has that same problem. Because I wasn't getting a lot of responses, I was contacting folks, and it wasn't working very well. So I turned to my friend Jen Barnett, who some of you know. She has been a friend of mine for 30 years, so she knows me really well. She can be honest, she can be direct, and she can be super helpful, and she is like a marketing genius. And like all this stuff I'm telling you, a lot of it's just stolen from Jen, and I just stuck my name on it. She should be the one talking about branding and blogs. But I had her read my profile, and I said, well, what do you think? And she looked at it, and she just said, it's terrible. I mean, it's just generic and boring. Like here it says, you like movies, you like music, you like going out to eat. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Like movies, like do you like documentaries, or do you like westerns, or do you like action adventure, or do you like horror, or do you like comedy? Do you like Citizen Kane, or do you like The Hunger Games? Do you like Schindler's List, or do you like Ernest Goes to Camp? Because those are all movies, right? And what type of director or actors do you gravitate towards? Music. I mean, do you like Frank Sinatra or Iggy Azalea? Do you like hip hop, or do you like classical? And on and on and on. And she said something that really just kind of like hit me in the gut. She said, you are afraid to put yourself out there. that you're afraid of being called out and showing off who you really are. You're afraid of that rejection. And she was absolutely right. I mean, I had not taken the time to examine myself. I certainly did not want to be rejected right off the bat, putting out a dating profile out there. But, I realized that it wasn't going to kill me and that I needed to at least try. So I rewrote my dating profile from top to bottom. And it's doubly shameful because I'm a writer. And I failed a writing assignment about the easiest subject in the world, myself. But I went through and I rewrote it and I showed it to her before I posted it. And I passed. She said, "This sounds like you, this reads like you, this is you." She said, "This is going to work out better in the long run because, yeah, you're going to get rejected up front because people will see it and they'll know that you are not a good fit with who they are or what they're looking for. But the ones who do reach out to you or do connect with you, they'll have already spotted something that connects between the two of you." We are all afraid at some point to put ourselves out there. We are all afraid of sticking out like a sore thumb because it's dangerous and it's scary and you will get feedback and not all of the feedback is going to be kind or positive. But if you are going to succeed with your brand and your blog, you've got to stand out. You've got to stand out from the dozens or hundreds or thousands or millions of other blogs out there. Because otherwise you get that amnesia. You look through all these other blogs and they just all kind of blend together. There's nothing about them that stands out to you. But there is risk in defining your values. There is risk in standing out as a brand and as a blog, because it opens you up to rejection and to criticism. So Jen does brand evaluations for my company, and so I could understand the process, I went through it. She's known me a long time, but I still wanted to go through the process from beginning to end. And what she does is she sits down with a company or an entrepreneur or a person and asks them about what they do and what their values are and how people perceive them. And she generates a long list of adjectives and traits, positive and negative. We went through the process and she narrowed it down to these 5 traits. Involved, honest, smart, funny, articulate. So this applies to me as a personal brand, not to my company or not to the other things I work on. If you just met me tonight, these are just words on a screen. They don't mean anything, save for the 30 minutes I've been talking. Are they accurate? I think so because I embody them and I live through them. But you can judge for yourself. Articulate, maybe that's the freebie you give me, because at no point does anyone raise their hand and ask me to repeat anything, clarify anything. So we'll give me articulate. Smart, well, smart enough to at least have learned from some of these misadventures in branding and blogging. Honest, well, I try and shoot straight. I don't think anyone else would tell you these stupid stories about Project Bulk and putting together a dating profile. There's no way I could be making that up. Funny. Judging by the laughter in the room, we'll go with that one. And involved, I like to speak to different groups. I like to speak to folks one-on-one about blogging and brands and so on. I like to stay part of the community. I like to keep up with folks and ask them questions and have them ask me questions. So I stay as involved as possible. So involved, honest, smart, funny, articulate. These are my personal brand values. You will read my blog post and you will see one or more of those in those blog posts or in my tweets or in my talks. I don't have to fake it. I don't have to work hard at this because she got it right. This is who I am. I mean, there are other words to describe me, but if you went to the most basic 5, these work. Your goal is to figure out what 3, 4, or 5 words describe your brand or your blog or your personal style or your company. So one way is to sit down with us, but Should you not have the time or the resources to do so, let me give you an alternate strategy. You get your closest friends, or your biggest fans, or your best customers, or your colleagues, and do a little focus group, and have them dig deep as to how they perceive you or your brand in terms of adjectives, both positive and negative. You might have a whiteboard and start writing down those adjectives. You may come up with a list of, say, 50 to 100 adjectives, and you're going to want to narrow that down. And I'll talk about that in a second, but you can have them vote on them, or you can just have them eliminate them one by one as the ones that are the weakest, till you get to that really core group. A few weeks ago, when I had y'all pick the topic for this presentation, we sent out a list of 10 topics, and we had you rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, most important, least important, each topic. And then we just scored all of your responses, and branding was the #1 response. You can use that same weighted response survey for narrowing down your adjectives. But when you sit down with people who know you really well, either as friends or as relatives or as customers or as longtime readers, they will pick up on things that you don't recognize about yourself. I strongly, strongly urge you not to do it by yourself. I know with me, I've got a blind spot. I cannot be objective about myself. I cannot accurately come up with that list of 5 adjectives on my own. I need at least one other person to be an impartial observer to give me that feedback. I think you're going to find that's extremely valuable to have someone else help you with this. That dating profile, it would never have gotten better had I not had Jen help me and fix it. So make sure that you pull together a good group of folks that can help you find your brand values. What is it that you stand for? You know, I said earlier, you don't want 10 or 20 values. It's just not going to be helpful. You really got to get it down to 3 to 5. It's going to make your life easier, and it's going to make those values stand for something. Version 1 of my dating profile, trying to be everything to everybody. Ended up being nothing to nobody. You can't be everything to everybody. You've got to stand for something. Your blog has got to stand out and be different from your blog. It's got to stand out and be different from your blog. So it might be painful. It might be tough to get it down to those 3 or 5 adjectives, but you can do it. It's critical to having a well-defined brand. If we spent the next 2 hours just listing adjectives for Apple, and then we voted them down to like the core 3 values for Apple, I'm reasonably certain that you as a group would have nailed it. And the way I would test it is I would take the exact opposite group. I'd take a group that was 99% men in their 50s and 60s who had never blogged before in their entire life, and we'll set it in Oregon, so across the country. And I go in front of this group and I say, we're going to talk about Apple, and I think these are the 3 brand values that represent them, true or false. I think they're all going to vote true. And it's because you as a group narrowed it down to those core values. So think about what you stand for, work with a consultant or an agency or with your friends and colleagues, and come up with that very short list of brand values. It's going to pay off, and I'll show you how in the last part. Natalie? So, looking at Natalie's blog, 37th Avenue. 37th, kind of in this royal blue, Avenue's in this warm gray, and then her headshot is black and white. And then like the stripes on the side, again, blue and gray. There's just a nice texture to the way her front page is set up. You look at her Facebook page, you get that same logo treatment across the top. You get a black and white avatar. And I don't know if this was deliberate on her part, but the Facebook blue complements or blends well with the blue in her logo. So there's a great use of color and type and continuity of design from her main front page to her Facebook page. Adrian? Adrian. So Adrian has Adrian's Essentials. Again, two-color logo. Adrian's in black on white background, Essentials in an accent purple. Very straightforward. I mean, you look at the Facebook and the Twitter accounts, logo stripped across the top image header. Also, same headshot from channel to channel. You get bonus points
For trying Google Plus?
because you use Google Plus. You're not just trying it. You go to our Google Plus page right now. It's been updated recently. So this is a Google Plus page for your blog. I don't, in all the blogs I looked at, this might be the only one I saw that actually had a Google Plus page. You're shaking your head
Because
no.
I hate Google Plus. I don't even know how to use it.
Oh, I hate it too. But you still get bonus points for using it. And she has her logo as the avatar. And my one tiny tip is, like, if you decide to keep using it or you update it, that rainbow area, well, you can just make it your same header image, and then you can use your avatar, which ironically is round on Facebook and Twitter. Well, Google Plus only uses round avatar, so it will fit perfectly. You won't have to do anything for it. You're already set. But all the way through, even on Google Plus, she's got her branding similar and intact. Buffy. Buffy has the Style Gathering, black type, white background, stylized S. You see it on the Facebook and the Twitter pages. I mean, again, you can just spot it in a split second. You see it across all of them. You get that same experience. Your branding does not have to be super complex. I mean, simple design choices really pay off. And you can see it the moment you hit any of those pages. So you set up your goals, you define your brand values. You got to do one more thing. You've got to be consistent in your brands and your blogs. I found through Project Vault, through eating the same stuff and exercising over and over and over again, that it wasn't public accountability that kept me going. It was finding out if the numbers were going up or down. Was I gaining weight? Was I getting healthier? Was I improving my body fat percentage? Whatever I could measure. But the other strength I found in doing this exercise program, this nutritional change, is I can be really consistent with very little prompting. Because my biggest fear starting out was I was going to give up in 3 weeks. I was going to give up in 2 months. I was going to get bored with it. And the reality was I changed everything about the way I ate and cooked and shopped, and I'm still doing it to this day. Like, now I'm not even updating it daily, and I'm still doing it because I know that the results have paid off. But I have that same approach to working on Twitter or launching a Facebook campaign or doing email marketing. I mean, I crank out email newsletters 1 or 2 a week over and over and over again because I want to be consistent and because I know I can do it. Let me give you some context to this to make a little bit more sense. 4 years ago, I and some friends started a nonprofit group. It's the Alabama Social Media Association. It's an organization that's dedicated to educating people in social media. We started work on January 2nd, 2011. I remember that day because that was the day we flew in a friend and consultant to get us started and to show us what to do. And we set a deadline for ourselves, which was within 60 days, by March 1st, we would launch, we would announce our presence, we would have a website, and we would announce our first event also in March. We did not give ourselves a lot of time to pull this off. Let me tell you where we started. So on January 2nd, 0 resources. I mean, nothing. No money, no sponsors, no partners, no volunteers, no website, no Facebook page, no Twitter account, no venue, no assets, nothing. We had the 5 of us, plus our consultant. We worked our asses off for those 60 days to get ready for launch. We had been talking about it for months before, but we finally actually got going on this because it was really important to us. February 28th, the night before we launch, we're going on TV the next day on 2 different local stations to announce this thing, and we have no website. It wasn't through lack of trying, but all of our plans fell apart, and they happened to fall apart on the day before launch. The website that we needed to explain our mission in more detail than we could in 5 minutes or 3 minutes on television, and give you links to our Facebook and our Twitter accounts, and sell tickets to our first event. So I foolishly volunteered that afternoon to build a website from scratch. By the way, it's not the website you see on screen. That's a later, much better version. Build a site from scratch so we would have something, because we could not go on 2 different TV stations and then point them to an empty URL. So I was up till 3 in the morning building the site, and it's crummy. Like I couldn't even put up a screenshot of it. It was so terrible. But it had links to our Facebook and our Twitter pages, it had our mission statement, and it had a ticket window so you could get tickets to our first event. And we went on TV, we went on 2 different stations, we sold out of tickets in an hour. So thank goodness we had the site together. You look at the Facebook and the Flickr page and the Twitter account and the Eventbrite page and the website, and you see different versions of the logo. You see the short version, the Alsocme version, and you see the long version, Alabama Social Media Association, which I know is a mouthful. Anyone, maybe with a design background, want to take a guess as to how long our agency worked on that logo and how much we spent on it? An educated guess? Some of you are like dying to tell me, but you're not actually uttering it.
$3,000.
$3,000. How long do you think it took to put this together? It has to be under 60 days because we only gave ourselves 2 months. Anyone else want to take a guess?
A day.
2 weeks.
A day, 2 weeks. Anything below, what, 3,000? Anything below or above $3,000? Let me tell you the truth, and it's been a secret for these 4 years, because we've never talked about this. We were in such a hurry to get all this together, because we only had 60 days, that we just didn't have a logo in place. So it is the week before launch. It is the last week of February 2011. And I mean, you don't have to have a logo. You can just say Alabama Social Media Association. But we needed something to fit in that little square box on the social media channels. We didn't want to roll out empty-handed. So I said, look, I will put together a placeholder logo, knowing that we are going to clear the boards once we have time. But we've got to get ready for March 1st. So we just got to have something in place, and we'll change it out later. So in 10 minutes, in Photoshop, I put together arguably a really crummy set of logos. I mean, this is basically gray and blue with a very dull type treatment. But we knew that we just have to have something to go in the box other than logo coming soon. So this was like the next best alternative, but it didn't cost us anything, and I just knew that like by May or June, we'd have the logo problem solved. Well, we never replaced the logo. It ended up on all of our sites, it ended up on all of our signage, it ended up on all of our videos, on our name tags, on our business cards. I mean, it was everywhere mocking me. We tried with different designers and agencies to get a logo that met our specifications, and we never got it, which tells you something about what we got in hand compared to what we already had out there. Whatever you may think of this logo, and I'm not terribly fond of it, especially because in 2012, I'm still looking at it. In 2013, I'm still looking at it. I left the organization in 2013 after I rolled off the board, but that logo is still there. It was never supposed to be there longer than a couple of months. It's been there 4 years. Whatever you may think of the logo, the branding, it's consistent, And it didn't keep us from getting 100+ people per meeting. It didn't keep us from getting speakers flying in from across the country. It didn't keep us from getting 50 media mentions in TV and radio and newspapers and websites and blogs. Didn't keep us from getting thousands of dollars in catering sponsorships. So the branding was consistent, and it put out a positive message. And that positive message was, we are genuinely interested in helping you learn about social media. And you can come to us at any point, or online, or in person, and learn about it. So the branding's not perfect, but it accomplished everything we needed to do out of the gate. First step in consistency, you got to show up. You have to be present. In my trip through all of your sites in the last 48 hours, it was a little sad to see some of the sites and no updates in 2015. 2015 is a quarter over at this point, and I haven't heard from you. Go back a screen. You got to update your blog at some point. You have to show signs of life. That may apply to your email newsletter or your social media channels, but you have to show up. If you have the most beautiful, perfect brand in the world, and you're not blogging on a regular basis, it's invisible. I can't see it, because I haven't heard from you in a while. But as I've just shown, you can have a fairly mediocre brand, but if you're consistent about updates and events, and Facebook and Twitter and newsletters and blog posts and photos and videos, that overcomes whatever the quality of the branding might be. First step, though, is got to show up. Marjorie. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi.
Another good example of branding. So, pinch of healthy. Nice job on the graphic element, the fork and the color. Healthy is in kind of like a Kelly green. Or,
Yeah.
a pinch of is in black type, white background. And if you look at the Facebook and the Twitter accounts, again, you see that logo and the header image. You also see her headshot, her avatar, across all three. Instagram doesn't let you have a header image. So you're stuck with whatever you call it and whatever the avatar is. Marjorie has used that same photo. By the way, I don't know if it's deliberate, but it looks great. Her dress is green, and it matches the green in healthy.
It was deliberate.
The little touches can make a big difference. So when you look at her Instagram page, it's called A Pinch of Healthy, you see the same photo that you see in these other channels, and it evokes the logo. By the way, I love skinny headers at the top. That's just personal preference. I know sometimes the trend is to go to deeper headers, but I just love the fact that logo, upper left, menu bar, plus all of your social icons right there, and then boom, right into first ad, sidebar, first post. Jessica? Jessica rebranded her site some time ago. I talked with her at the last event, and so now it's called Hip and Simple. And she's got, again, she's got that ampersand and that stylized green. The colors I would describe as beachy. I'm not sure exactly how to describe them, but I think she would have a better adjective. But if you look at her Facebook and Twitter accounts, logo across the top header image, same use of her headshot in all three. Even on her Twitter page, if you look closely, the tweets, the colors for the tweets are that same color scheme she uses for the logo. I mean, that's a lot of thought into the detail for that rebranding. So applause for her for down to the smallest detail, making sure that that rebrand carried everything she wanted to carry in Hip and Simple. First, you got to show up to be consistent. But you've got a different challenge in doing blogs. Non-linear storytelling. When I talk about the power of storytelling in a different talk, I talk about blogs as non-linear. You and I go to a movie together, we show up, we sit down, we watch the beginning of the movie, and then it spools on through to the middle, and then 2 hours later we reach into the movie. We see the same movie as the director and the screenwriter intended. Beginning, middle, end. Linear. You and I, we get a book. I get one from upstairs, you get one from the bookstore. Same book, same author. And we read it from page 1 through the middle on 200 pages to the end. And we get the same experience that the author intended. Linear storytelling. The problem with blogs is your readers are always coming in the middle of the story. They're coming in the middle of the story. If you came to this presentation now, in the middle of it, you'd probably have no idea what we were talking about. If we went to that movie and we watched the middle of it first, and then 10 minutes towards the end, and then 10 minutes towards the beginning, and scrambled the order, we'd have no idea what's going on. If we took those books and ripped out all the pages and threw them up in the air and just read them in the order that they fell down, it'd be a crazy jumble. How on earth do we expect total strangers to read our blogs and get any sense of story that we're trying to tell? Go back to your 3 to 5 brand values. Make sure that you soak every blog post in those values, that you permeate those blog posts with your values and your brand. Because that one post that they find accidentally through Google might be the only opportunity that they read your site. Because most of them are just going to go away. They didn't find what they were looking for, or it wasn't what they expected, or they don't like your tone, or they just weren't in the right mood, and they didn't skim down far enough to find the answer they were looking for. So they're gone. They're never coming back. You only get limited opportunities to get people interested and excited about your brand and your blog. So you've got to make sure that all of those posts resonate with that brand. If you go look at some of the 6,000 blog posts I've created, hopefully they're involved or funny or smart or honest or articulate, or some combination of those. Or if you read my tweets, or if you read my LinkedIn updates, or you look at my Instagram feed. I have to think carefully about what I put out there because I want my brand to permeate all of those outlets. Because I don't know if you're going to go read my other stuff. I hope you do. I hope you subscribe. But you'll never read it in the order I prescribe to you. You're still going to read it in nonlinear fashion. So each post after that they randomly come to still has to be soaked in these brand values. I don't think you could do it with 10 brand values. I don't think you could do it with 20 brand values. I think you can do it with 3 to 5. Your challenge as storytellers is that they're always coming in the middle, but your defense against it is to make sure your brand shines through. If you are successful at standing out as a brand, you're going to attract new followers and fervent fans and admirers and customers and sponsors and advertisers and partners. You will probably also attract your share of haters, trolls, mean commenters, people who are just there to ruin your day. As I said before, that is the risk you take standing out as a brand, but your alternative is to blend in comfortably with everyone else and never get singled out because they will never notice you. So there are some risks and some negatives to standing out well as a brand. But there is also an opportunity. When you get negative comments, when you get trolls, you can ignore them. You can delete their comments. You can moderate them so they never show up, that the only person who ever sees them is that person and you. If you choose to respond, you can respond within your brand or outside of your brand. I've worked in journalism a long time, so I'm used to angry callers, angry readers, angry emails, and so on. So it was no big deal when I started to get a similar response on one or more of my blogs. I have to be careful because my first instinct is if you come to my blog, which I'm pouring all of my time and energy into, and you decide to be mean to me, my first instinct is to go for the jugular. And when I say that, I'm not soft pedaling it. If someone takes the time to write something really mean, I will respond with such a verbal beatdown that you will go crying to your mama. But I like to think that I've softened a bit over the last few years and that I can respond on brand. Involved, smart, funny, articulate, honest. Well, I can definitely be funny if I've made a mistake and I need to correct it, and that person has rightly pointed out that I screwed up something in the post. And I can be funny about it and disarm them. If someone responds and says something really mean, I can say, you know what, your comment hurt my feelings, and I think you went over the line, but I appreciate you reading the post, and I hope you'll continue to read in the future. It's honest. Hopefully it's a smarter approach than just attacking back, and it's on brand. Your opportunity to respond to commenters, positive or negative, can reflect the tone and the values that you have. If you have a happy value, you can respond in a happy fashion. If you are snarky in your blog, you can be snarky in your responses. It's within your brand. It's what people expect. It's easy to put your brand values out there when you're just doing it in a vacuum, when you're not responding, when you're just being smart and articulate and funny and honest and whatever. It's harder when people come up to you and spit venom in your face. But it can be done. So when you respond, if you respond to trolls and haters, think about your brand values and use this as an opportunity to show the community at large that you are on brand and that you are responsive. And that you have that continuity of effort, not just in a vacuum, but when dealing with other human beings. It's not going to be easy. But if you have well-defined brand values, you at least have guidelines. You have a lane to stay within. So consistency, show up. Permeate, thank you. Permeate everything that you do with your brand values and respond only when needed. If you have questions that you don't think of in the next 5 minutes, you can email me at wade@wadekwon.com, which, by the way, is on your worksheet. BirminghamBlogging.com has got more posts and information and the slides from tonight on social media, blogging, and brands. I'm on Twitter at WadeOnTweets. You can tweet me your questions at any time. And again, if you need these slides, they're posted. It's Wade/artofthebrand, all lowercase, one word. Feel free to share that, tweet it out, wherever. It's Wade, itswa.de/artofthebrand. Slides, worksheet, more information about tonight's session. You're going to have to put some thought into your brands and your blogs. You're going to have to consider where you want them to go, how you're going to define them from this point forward, and how you're going to deploy it with consistency. It goes way beyond what the logo is. It goes beyond the color scheme and the typography and how it looks on your homepage and how it looks on all of these other channels. You can spend from now till forever fiddling with the logo and trying to get everything just so and so on. But I would argue there's no such thing as a perfect brand. But once you get the brand out there, once you know what you stand for, and you show folks that you mean business, there's no limit to the goals that you can accomplish through your blog and your brand. You probably won't have as many misadventures as I've had, and that's fortunate. I want you to learn from my many, many mistakes along the way. But I definitely want to see all of your blogs continue to thrive and grow and see people recognize your brands for how truly special they are. Thank you.